Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris. The 2026 Ninjago set images just released, and I have a lot of thoughts. I initially was going to bundle this video into my interview segment with the designers and my hands-on look at some of the many sets we'll be looking at in today's video, but that video got so long and this video got so long because I have so many thoughts, I figured it made sense to split them up. So if you're curious about seeing these sets in hand and actually seeing my interview with some of the LEGO Ninjago design team, seeing them be unveiled in person, make sure to go ahead and check out that video. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing my honest opinions on this wave of Ninjago, the good and the bad. Starting off, I think Ninjago Legacy is off to an amazing start. I think that all of the Ninjago Legacy sets, and one of them is still not revealed as of the time of this recording, are amazing, phenomenal, cannot wait. Dragons Rising, on the other hand, though, as much as I love the series, I honestly feel like the wave of Dragons Rising for January 2026 is a little on the weaker side, and let's dive into why I feel like that, or if I'm being too harsh, and if you disagree with me, let me know in the comments below. So, let's jump into all of the newly revealed Ninjago sets right now. Alright, let's kick things off with the smallest, but in my opinion, one of the best sets of the wave, and this is 30723, simply titled Cole's Car. It's a remake of the 2012 polybag, simply titled Car, featuring Cole and gold blades on the side of a small vehicle he drove around. It is awesome to see them not only remake an old polybag for Ninjago Legacy, but also to do it so much better. I spoke to the designer Lee Chi-Wing, and he mentioned it was a priority to get the armor piece into this polybag because traditionally LEGO Ninjago polybags don't include full versions of the minifigures, and it was really important for him that kids picking up this $5 polybag got a chance to get the fully outfitted, armored up version of Cole available out of the bag, and I think that is awesome. This is going to be available at some point in January for $5 pretty much anywhere around the world. I'm sure you'll see it at Discovery Centers, or if you're in the US, your local Targets and Walmarts, and for all we know, it might be a GWP down the line as well. We're just going to have to wait and see. But now let's move on to the mainline sets. We have a couple of elemental monster spinners, and these are very interesting. For the first time in years, we are getting a reuse of the same spinner gimmick that kickstarted this past year in 2025. Of course, they have modified the energy elements on the side of the spinners because this time they are representing the villains. We get one for the elemental mutation monster and another one for the elemental earth monster. And one thing I find really funny is that, of course, we are getting the first three of many elemental monsters releasing next year in the January waves, and they basically did spinners for the two that you can actually make a spinner for, and for the third one that we're seeing in January, the acid elemental monster, because that one has a serpentine-like tail, they decided not to give us a spinner for that one, but instead to depict it as a character on the side of the spinners. So if you look at the side of these spinners, they actually have the acid snake in the right color scheme as well, in transparent purple and transparent green, the two colors of that snake in the actual spinner, which I think is very clever. Whether or not this will appear in the show is really up in the air. I feel like we sometimes get villain spinners like the Skulkin or the Serpentine or even the Ice Samurai that just do not appear in the show whatsoever. Those characters do not do spinjitzu, but then other characters just randomly do, like Doubloon or Asphira, so I really am curious to see if this is actually going to make it into the show itself, but as it is right now, these are the two spinners. One of the things I really like about them is not only the fact that they include two different minifigures. You have Nia fighting against the mutation monster in the first one. Nia is in her Draconis form armor without the actual dragon wings or tail, but just the armor itself, and then you have the elemental mutation monster, a really fun minifigure that has a gigantic head, a big cyclops eye, and a transparent green arm, which is very cool. And then when you go to the elemental earth spinner, you have Lloyd in his standard Draconis armor, but then for the elemental earth monster, you actually have a recolor of the headpiece as seen in Korg from Marvel in dark tan, but he also has the standard headpiece with these gunmetal gray dual molded claws sticking out of the top that you can choose to use as either a weapon for him to hold gold, or the actual headpiece, so you can make him look how he looks like in the show. It's a really nice touch, and I figure they did that for safety reasons. They probably didn't want something that spiky spinning around at high speeds, and that's also the reason as to why the minifigures can't be shown holding weapons in these spinners. I actually asked designers, and they said anything launched by a physical launcher and not by a child's hands cannot have anything pointy sticking out of it, and it can't have any stud attachment points, or really any attachment points to actual LEGO pieces to prevent kids from building actual spiky things onto it and then hurting themselves. So obviously, we have come a long way since the original spinners, and new safety protocols are in place for LEGO, but I do like that they did include that headpiece in case you do want the regular version of the minifigure, and it's nice to get a somewhat exclusive version here. The only downside is that typically we are used to seeing exclusive Ninjago variants of characters in these spinners, even just like an exclusive dual molded hood for the ninja or something like that, but instead they chose not to use the budget there, and we just have basically standard versions of the characters outside of that dark tan headpiece. But I guess they spent the budget on the other minifigures of the wave, and for good reason. Moving on from that, we have 71851 Kai's Dragon Mech Battle Pack. It retails for $10 and comes with 85 pieces, and out of all the $10 mech sets, I feel like this is one of the strongest in terms of the builds. The fact that it has the integration of these dual color dragon wings helps a ton, and you also have the inclusion of a transparent orange new energy leaf element, which is a piece that they're actually going to be using in all sorts of different colors throughout this wave of Ninjago. I think it is a really solid build, and compared to the J-Mech that we got previously, or even the Zane one from this year, I feel like this one is definitely the strongest. That being said, it maybe has one of the weakest minifigure selections out of all of these. I'm very used to these being battle packs of sorts for the characters, where we can get a couple of different enemy villain figures, or maybe one of the more important enemy villains, but instead, this one just has the version of Sora that we got last year, just with an armor piece and mask instead of the full-on dragon armor, and then another copy of the elemental earth monster, who again also appears in a $10 spinner, so it's not the most exciting minifigure to get to me. I think it would have been really cool if this had one of the other elemental monsters, like maybe the acid one, to have appear in a $10 set, but I understand they did try to keep the budget down here. It just would have been nice to get something a little bit different. Moving on from that, we have 71854 Cole's Mission Mech, and during my interview with the designers, they did mention that no, this is not supposed to be a mech, this is actually Cole's golem form in universe, but having it be marketed as a mech just works better for sales for Ninjago. Sets simply sell better if you call them mech, so that's why this is called mech, which I think is a very funny reason as to why this set is named the way it is. As it is though as a set, I'm gonna be completely honest, after playing around with it in hand, I am not the biggest fan of this set. I like the idea of having it be a mission mech where it has all of these different accessories, like Cole's packing, he's holding a gun in one hand, he has a sword in the other hand, he has a staff that he can use on his back, and it's also fully modular with the weapons from Ninja Dragon Ryu's battle, the next set we're going to look at in a little bit, where you can swap the weapons back and forth between those two sets. That is all very, very cool in concept, and I think from a distance, aesthetically, this definitely does look like the golem form in the show. They did mention that the form in the show will be actually appearing like this set, and there will be an in-universe reason as to why it looks a little bit different, so that is nice to hear. But after playing around with it, I definitely felt like this was not one of the stronger Ninjago mechs. The biggest issue to me is that the head feels very, very awkward for what it's trying to depict, and worst of all, it doesn't actually have a ball joint attachment, which means that the head can only look up and down, it can't even swivel side to side, which I think is a major miss, especially when you're building a character that's meant to depict the brick-built version of a large-scale actual person in the show in the form of Cole. I think it is missing a lot of articulation I would have loved to see, and even down to the hands. They are attached to the arms, which are fully fixed, so there's no way to really pose up the weapons the way you would want. You basically have just very static hands that can only hold the weapons fully forwards, and that is something that we see a lot on 4+ mechs or on core mechs. Very simple builds, but for an actual standard Ninjago set that's 7+, that's $30, I definitely was expecting a little bit more. Of course, this is somewhat reminiscent of the elemental mechs, which were also around $30 per piece, but I even feel like those aesthetically were a little bit cleaner than this one. The gold armor plating throws me off a lot. I feel feel like those leaf elements are integrated not very well into the build, and it's unfortunate because I feel like with a couple of small modifications, this could make for a really solid Ninjago set. There's just a couple of small tweaks that really throw me off. The head not being able to be articulated, the hands being fixed in the position they are, and just some of the gold plating. But otherwise, I feel like the concept behind the set is there, and that's something you're going to hear me saying a lot about the sets in this wave. I feel like they're so close to greatness, but just don't quite hit the mark. That being said, the minifigures in this set are phenomenal. We get the Draconis form of Zane, which looks absolutely striking. I love the white and light blue color scheme dual molded into the head. The white wings look really good for the character too, and we get the Acid Monster, one of my favorite elemental monsters that we've seen so far in minifigure form. I think the dual molded head in purple and trans green just looks so cool, and of course having it be snake themed is absolutely amazing as well. So minifigure wise, really no complaints, just the set itself leaves a little bit to be desired. Next up here we have Ninja Dragon Ryu's Battle. It comes with 347 pieces, it's set number 71855, and unfortunately this is not cheap. It retails for $50 US, which feels high, 50 or 45, I don't have the exact price on it right now, but even around that range. Feels a little high for what you get. Of course, you do have the large-scale Ryu wings included in that were introduced earlier this year, so I do understand that that makes sense, but overall, I definitely feel like this dragon set is a very good build until it isn't. If you start from the tail and move your way up, this is pretty awesome. I love how he can be posed, I think he's a very dynamic build, and then you get to the head, and I don't know what they're cooking with that head, but basically they have taken the existing Ryu headpiece, which literally has a jaw molded in as a jaw line, and then brick built a jaw underneath it. And from afar, if you kind of squint, it's not that big of a deal. Like, you can kind of make it work, but up close, and especially having this set in hand, it's weird. It looks off. I mean, even from a distance, I actually think it looks okay, but when you're playing with it, it looks really off, and I understand if they hadn't have released 2 other Ryu sets that actually also use that molded line as the jaw, but it's very strange to go from seeing that as the jaw in my head twice in physical LEGO form to using the exact same piece, but brick building a jaw underneath it. One thing they did that was nice was at least change the printing, so he feels more grown up, he feels more like an adult dragon. I think it's nice they changed the printing, but the jaw build is not it. Now, I understand why they did this. They did not have the budget to make another new dragon head mold, and they tried using some of the other ones that exist already for Ninjago, but they didn't feel like it fit the scales and shaping of Ryu the best. So they went back to the head they designed for Ryu, but whoops, it has a jaw molded in. Well, you can go for just not brick building a jaw, but then I would argue that it would feel very small as a head compared to the rest of the dragon, and you also lose one of my favorite play features of the set, which is to allow him to hold a sword in his jaw, which is actually really cool and very clever. I think that's very nice as a function, and you can even swap it out, as I mentioned, with the weapons from Cole's mission mech to have him hold a staff. Maybe Ryu can pack. Can he hold the gun? I'm very curious about that. His claws also have the ability for you to attach weapons. I mean, if he can't hold it in his mouth, he can definitely hold the gun in his hand. Oh, that's gonna be awesome. I can't wait to do that in my review. But as it stands right now, I feel like this is genuinely a really solid Ninjago dragon build, just let down by the weird jaw. And unfortunately, when you're looking at a dragon or any creature, your attention is immediately drawn to the face and to what he's got going on with the head and the sort of setup there. And I feel like that is unfortunately something that is the biggest weak point about this set, is that the jaw itself just looks very wonky. I also feel like the gimmick elements are kind of shoehorned in, like the transparent opalescent detail for those new leaf pieces is a little strange. I don't really see or understand what they're supposed to represent on Ryu. I guess maybe like energy bursts, but they look a little bit odd. Honestly, I would probably just leave them off, but otherwise, it's a really solid build, other than the jaw, and that's really all I have to say about it. Price is also a bit too high, but you know, for this wave, what else is new? Moving on from that though, we have 71856, Jay's transforming car. This comes with 387 pieces, but for some reason retails for $55 US. I feel like this is another Aaron's Ninja off-road buggy car situation where we get a four-wheeled vehicle for the Ninja that is just for whatever reason incredibly overpriced for what you get. It's actually kind of crazy how the previous set we looked at, Cole's Mission Mech, has 364 pieces and retailed for $30, but this one is 387 pieces, barely 20 more pieces than the previous one, and it comes for $55 US. I don't really know why this one is so much more expensive, and it honestly doesn't even include that many large extra elements to justify it. Sure, tires are more expensive and it does have a dual molded dragon headpiece in the middle, but okay, let's say those add maybe $5 retail value max to the build. This should not be more than $40. Like $35, $40, I think tops. 45 is already pushing it by a lot, but 55 is insane, and I don't understand why this is worth $55. But setting price aside and taking a look at the build, I actually think this one is alright. It's nothing super crazy, but I do like the flipping function to showcase the dragon underneath the hood. I feel like that is kind of reminiscent of some of the classic Ninjago builds like the Cole's ZX Tread Assault, which had this serpentine design on the bottom where you could flip it under and use it to infiltrate the snakes. I think that's a really clever idea to add into a set. But honestly, when I hear the name Jay's transforming car, I kinda would want to see a bit more of a detailed transformation other than just flipping the wheels in the front and showcasing there's a gold dragon sculpt underneath as opposed to a standard car engine. I don't know, I just feel like I hear that and I'm imagining something very crazy, like maybe it turns into a mech, or maybe like wings sprout out, or there's some other transformation, like spikes come out of the back or something like that during the transformation, but as far as I can tell, the entire transformation itself is literally just turning the front of the car, and we actually got a set like that for Legends of Chima, Tormach's Shadow Blazer, and I'm gonna be honest, I feel like Chima did it better, because that one, the way it worked is that you actually rotated a knob on the back, so when you have it pop a wheelie, you could kind of remotely have the wheels turn backwards, and this set does not do that. You basically just have to move it yourself, so I do feel like it is a bit of a letdown in the transformation category, because maybe my hopes were set too high when I saw the set name be leaked, but I was definitely picturing something a lot more involved than this. That being said, it is nice to get Jay and Nia together again in a set. Also, the dragon form or Draconis form Kai looks amazing. Earth Monster, again, one of the most common elemental monsters we're getting, but I think it looks really good. And then you have the Loyalist Leader, aka Dr. Leroux, returning from Season 1 of Dragon's Rising, and I'm really curious to see how they pull that one off. Altogether, I think this one's alright. It really reminds me of stuff like the Season 11 Kai's car, the Katana 4x4, which, may I add, also a much cooler name for a vehicle than Jay's transforming car, and I know that nowadays modern Ninjago and modern LEGO in general really likes to have the most optimized search engine optimization for every set name. So they have the most simplified set names you can possibly think of, Jay's transforming car or Cole's Mission Mech, but guaranteed if these came out just a few years prior, this would have a name like Katana 4x4, and the previous set definitely would have been called Cole's Golem form. So I think it's very funny to see just how even set naming has kind of changed over the years to just appeal a little bit more to popping out in the algorithm. Moving on from that, we have set number 71857, Ninja Vehicle Treehouse Battle. It retails for $80 US and comes with 642 pieces, which isn't great, and it also comes out on January 1st. And honestly, this is another one of the weaker sets of the wave to me. I feel like this is just gonna be one of the most forgettable Ninjago sets. I already am forgetting it, and I've looked at it just today in images, and I don't know, it just feels like for a set marketed as a treehouse, so much of it is put into the vehicles, so much emphasis, so many pieces are put into the vehicles, and that's alright if the vehicles are special and cool, but honestly, these are some of the most basic Ninjago vehicles that I've seen in a while. Zane's helicopter is really nothing special. The one major detail about it I do like is the integration of the dual molded dragon head on the front of the helicopter. I actually think that is very cool, and Kai's motorcycle, is cool enough. It's very oversized for what it is, and it kind of feels like it's part of a larger combo vehicle in the way it's built. I do like the 4 headlights on the top and the angle for the jet exhausts on the side, but honestly, I totally would have been very, very happy just having the vehicles be shrunken down, maybe have like a polybag sized motorcycle, or just a little helicopter to land on a much larger treehouse. I think Ninjago has been totally killing it recently in recent years for their location builds, and this kind of feels like a step backwards. It feels like a location build we would have gotten in like 2015 or 2016, and some of those sets were really good, but they're not up to the level of quality I would love to expect from Ninjago nowadays. Maybe we've been spoiled by amazing designs we've seen in the past with much more intricate Ninjago builds, and I get it, the entire concept and idea behind this set was that you have a treehouse and vehicles, and they're kind of deploying from that treehouse. But I don't know, that is not a tree, nor is it really a house. It's just kind of a small little build with barely any depth to it. There's really basically no walls. I mean, you just have these little pagoda-like structures. The nicest thing about it is the bridge. I think that is actually a really nice looking bridge. It's simple, but it gets the job done, and you have this turning knob feature to rotate the bridge back and forth like you would see in LEGO Adventure sets back in the day. But honestly, just looking at the rest of the build, not a big fan of how they were able to pull this one off. Minifigure-wise, you do have, again, great minifigures. You have Jay in his Draconis form, Kai and Zane in Draconis armor. You have a brand new version of Euphrasia, and it's not obvious by this render, but she actually has metallic blue printing on the torso, which looks amazing in person. I mean, that is some of the coolest Ninjago minifigure designs I've seen, so it's really cool to get a new version of Euphrasia. And then you have a standard loyalist to fight, as well as the acid monster, which is a very cool minifigure, as I mentioned. So again, the minifigures are kind of carrying the sets here, but it is just a little disappointing that I feel like for a set to have a location and vehicles, and to have them be deploying from the location, I really wish that location was a lot larger. Imagine if this had doors in which you could open up and the motorcycle could roll out, or a little helipad for the helicopter. I think that would have been really cool if you were to use just more of the parts to the build and less of the parts to the vehicles. So for $80 and only 642 pieces, this one feels like a bit of a miss for me, and I can think of a lot more Ninjago location-based sets around that price point that came out in recent years that I certainly would recommend over this one. Moving on from that, we have 71859, the Dragon of Life, and this is the Arc Dragon, not the Source Dragon. It is a major component in the Season 4 storyline of Ninjago, where we delve deeper into the origin of Lloyd's elemental powers, have him complete the ritual of unrooting, and battle against the corrupted versions of the elements caused by the Source Dragons leaving the Council. And this set is really the focal point of Dragons Rising Season 4 Part 1. It is where a lot of the action happens. The Arc Dragon of Life is kind of the mascot character for the season. You can see it on the top of the box. And I shared my in-depth thoughts on this on my early review I published last night. And honestly, I am very mixed on this one. I think out of all the Dragons Rising sets revealed so far, it probably is the best. But I'm gonna be honest, I definitely do not feel like it is a very high bar for this wave. And I have a lot of problems with this dragon in particular. It reminds me of the Arc Dragon of Focus, which was also one of my least favorite Ninjago dragons in recent history, and maybe we've just been spoiled by absolutely phenomenal sets like the Source Dragon Emotion, and obviously that's a completely different price point, so it's hard to compare them. But I do feel like this was such a solid idea for a Ninjago dragon set that unfortunately, due to execution, was kind of let down in some major ways. It retails for $110 and comes with 1,050 pieces, which on paper and in terms of physically what you get in the build is actually pretty good value. I actually think that is remarkably decent value for what you get, but for once, it's not about value here that I'm complaining about, it's actually about the build. I feel like the exposed Technic on the sides of the wings look very awkward, and especially when you have the wings unfurled, it's very hard to put this into a flying position. I get that most of this dragon's action is supposed to be on the ground, at least from what we can see on the box art. It's not really meant to be shown flying through the air, but one of my favorite things I love to do every time I get a LEGO dragon is to kind of swoosh it around and try to fly it, and I feel like it's not very easy to do that with this particular build. Add to the fact that you had so much potential in the color scheme. We've never really gotten a nature-focused dragon for Ninjago before, unless you count the smaller fall leaf-themed dragon we got for the Tournament Temple City last year, and this is such a cool dragon when it comes to the color scheme. The green and the brown of like the wood of a tree trunk intermixed with foliage is so clever. I love how the back legs are light gray and dark gray, showcasing the rocks that you can find in the jungle. I feel like that is such a cool idea for a nature-focused dragon. The color scheme is absolutely fantastic, but then you get to issues like the exposed technique in the wings, the lack of articulation, the way the neck is mounted is super awkward as well. It's very, very vertically pointed upwards, which works for very particular poses like the one on the back of the box, but doesn't really work for any other poses. And I feel like this could have used just a couple more iterations to become a truly great Ninjago dragon set, whereas right now I feel like it is an amazing idea, but not so great execution. One of the commenters in my video last night mentioned that they could have integrated the same exact wing function, but actually had it move across a cloth element and actually have that unfurl over the course of the action, and I feel like that would have made a massive difference. Imagine if all that technique was covered up by a movable cloth element that actually unfurled as you furled out the dragon wings. I think that would have been such an easy fix here, and obviously some changes would have had to be made just due to the way the fabric worked, but I really wish they invested in something like that, as opposed to what we ended up with now, which I feel like is just missed potential as a LEGO set. Still, it's not the worst. I'm not saying it's a bad set, I'm just saying I feel like it could have been a lot better, and it just is very unfortunate when you see a very cool concept like this, feeling like you could have gotten something cooler out of it. Still, minifigure-wise, I do think that, again, as per all of these sets, the minifigures are amazing. Draconis form Lloyd and Cole looks super cool, Zane in the armor is great, dark blue suit for Aaron is super cool as well, and then you have Sora returning in the Ghost Hunter suit, which is alright. Would have been nice to get a new version of Sora, but it seems like they're limiting those to one per year, where Aaron gets a new suit in January and Sora gets one in June. But I feel like they're important enough characters to deserve new suits for the entire wave, but maybe not for Dragons Rising. LEGO's not ready to do that yet. You of course get the Loyalist Leader, aka Dr. LaRoe, and the Acid Monster and Earth Monster, which is super cool. So minifigure selection, fantastic, just the set leaves a little to be desired. So that sums up the Dragons Rising sets, but then we can take a look at some of the other sets that were just revealed, and for Ninjago Legacy, it is almost a night and day difference, where every single Ninjago Legacy set revealed so far, like the Blacksmith Shop, which I already did my early review on, and now the Ninja Character Display, and soon the Old Town, which you're gonna see very soon, and trust me, that set does not disappoint. I cannot wait for everybody to see how amazing that set is. But going into Ninjago Legacy, I feel like the sets are so amazing, and they're some of the best ones that we have seen from Ninjago, maybe ever. 71866, the Ninja Character Display, absolutely spits in the face of modern LEGO in the best way possible. This set includes 8 minifigures, many of which are exclusive to this set, or if not exclusive to this set, exclusive to very expensive other sets. It comes with 447 pieces, and it retails for $45 US. How did that happen? I don't know. I'm not complaining. Believe me, I can barely believe it myself. I legitimately am so confused as to how they were able to pull that off. 8 minifigures, $45, and a build that legitimately is a really, really good. I mean, this is the kind of value that is gluttony at this point. Imagine LEGO superheroes giving you value like this. I mean, no other LEGO theme would ever give you a set like this, as good as it is, featuring every single important main character from the history of the theme, all 6 ninja plus Wu, plus an exclusive Elemental Master of Lightning, Jay's mother, aka Leo, as we just found out in Strike of the Serpentine, the graphic novel. This is just an amazing build, and if you look, you can turn it around. There's even a background in the middle of the set. You actually have a nice little decal showcasing the original story that Wu was telling of his brother Garmadon and how he was struck down into the underworld. It is just such an amazing build. I think that this is one of my favorite Ninjago sets ever. You have brand new face prints for both Jay and Zane, and for whatever reason, they don't show it on the box art, but Zane has the alternate half robotic face on the other side of his head for the Legacy version. I think that is awesome to get a brand new face print for that, so that's super cool. Jay also has a new expression because his old headpiece is now discontinued. You even get an exclusive, at least for now, Samurai X Nia minifigure, which is a total surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. I was not expecting us to get so many different variations of Nia just redone, and altogether, I think that this is an easy, absolute all-timer, Hall of Fame, not just Ninjago set, but LEGO set in general, in terms of what it means to the history of one of their longest-running themes, in terms of the value it provides. You don't need to be a Ninjago fan to recognize this is insane value right here. And altogether, I feel like this is the set to celebrate Ninjago Legacy. $45 will not break the bank, at least compared to a lot of other LEGO sets coming out nowadays, and the value you get in the minifigures just unparalleled. So very, very happy about this one. I certainly think that this is a big stride forwards for Ninjago. Super pleased with that. And overall, just one of my favorite sets that they just revealed. Of course, this isn't all. They also revealed a couple of March LEGO Ninjago sets. I already shared my full thoughts in my early look at Lloyd's Titan mech, so I'm just going to cover that super briefly now. The minifigure of Hibernus is super cool to see actually in the digital render for this set, and Lloyd's Titan mech, after playing with it in hand, I felt like it was a little flimsier than I wanted it to be, but aesthetically speaking, it's very cool, and the shield is awesome to add on to the set. We also have a new 4+ LEGO Ninjago set, and this one, for whatever reason, is actually one of the best 4+ sets we've gotten. I mean, a lot of the 4+ sets are very janky, and they're not meant for me or you. Most people watching this video, they're meant for a younger audience, and I understand that. So I don't really expect a lot of 4+ sets, and I don't really actually scrutinize them that tightly either, because they're just kind of their own one-off things. But this is actually really solid. They have introduced a brand new dragon leg mold for Jay's mech, which I think makes it work so much better than previous builds. They also are utilizing the smaller frame for the upper mech body, which just looks way better than the catastrophic monstrosity of Jay's Electro Mech Legacy from the previous Ninjago Anniversary Wave. And you even have multiple copies of those brand new leaf elements in gold for Jay's mech to really add a lot more detail onto the build. And unlike Cole's mission mech, these ones have the hands totally affixed to the arms, and I have absolutely no complaints about that because these are made for children, and that is totally fine. They're made for very young kids. I mean, everything Ninjago is made for children, but these are made for especially young kids, and that's totally fine. Don't really care about having to articulate the hands because this is a 4+ set, and it's also very funny to get the elemental mutation monster in his own little mech build. I think the legs aren't great for that one. I honestly kind of wish they just introduced those dragon legs for this one too. I feel like that would have worked to make it feel more bestial, but as far as the rest of the mech goes, it's alright, and it's very funny to see his gigantic head just sitting on top of the mech. I feel like that character is going to become a fan favorite. I'm predicting it now. Dude's going to become the Zarkt of the elemental monsters, you know? He's going to show up in the show, just get absolutely trounced, but he just looks funny, and people are going to love him. And I feel like that's my prediction. I have not seen Dragon's Rising Season 4, of course, it's not out yet, but I feel like the design is funny enough that, like, that's going to become a community favorite. But overall, besides that one, and again, this retails for $20, which is quite good. 107 pieces, which again, 4+ set, so kind of throwaway piece value here. $20 for 2 mechs, 2 great minifigs, and 2 pretty decent mechs as well. Cannot really complain at all about that. And with that, we have summed up my thoughts on the recently revealed 2026 LEGO Ninjago sets. Definitely a controversial wave. I have a lot of thoughts on this wave, and unfortunately I do feel like it is one of the weakest Dragon's Rising waves of all time, carried absolutely by Legacy. The Legacy sets are just so much better than even a lot of other regular LEGO sets out there now, that I feel like it's very funny because it's like they sapped quality from the Dragon's Rising sets, or all of the energies went into making the Legacy sets, and maybe that's the case, but it is really strange that I feel like so many of these sets, like the Dragon of Life and Cole's mech, especially those two, feel like there's little things that could have been made, little changes that could have been implemented that would have improved these 1,000-fold and left me with a much better taste in my mouth than feeling like, these sets are just kind of mid or they're okay, and then I would have gone, wow, these sets are really awesome. It's just little things. Ball joint for Cole's head, allowing you to move the hands, maybe a little bit cleaner build for the torso to make it less awkward. Then you go to the Dragon of Life, just a different building technique for the wings, and then you have a different building technique for the neck, and I think the rest of the dragon is totally fine. So there's little things like that that they could have improved, and then, of course, Ninja Dragon Ryu's battle. What is going on with the jaw there? I mean, I understand the limitations, I get it. As I mentioned, I do know why they did what they did, but I feel like there's gotta have been some workaround. I mean, there was really no budget to either make a new mold for Ryu's head, or to just, I don't know, use a slightly different head or a slightly different build, or forget the function of him holding the sword in his mouth, but then that is a really cool function to have, so I understand why they did it. It just looks really awkward, and again, feels like there's little things they could have improved that would have made this wave amazing, as opposed to just kinda mediocre and a little weaker than other Dragon's Rising waves. That's just my thoughts though, and I'm very curious to hear what you think about this wave. Do you feel the same way as me, or do you think that these sets are a lot better than I'm giving them credit for? And again, I'm not saying the sets are bad, I just feel like Ninjago is my favorite ongoing theme, so I am extra critical when it comes to taking a look at all of the sets because I want Ninjago to perform the best it possibly can, and to be the best it can, and I feel like these are so close to fulfilling their literal true potential. Those are just my thoughts though. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon. Thank you so much for watching, and of course, let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and bye for now.